Shalom. My name is Liz McGee, and I am a Torah teacher with the Elect Life Ministries. And actually, if you haven't heard my teachings before, I am really a new kind of Torah teacher. I am part of a huge army of people that are coming forward that are really discovering and being Berean and beginning to understand that Jesus, Yeshua, was definitely a Jewish rabbi. More than he was a Christian pastor, he was a Jewish rabbi. So we got to go back. I have another inconvenient truth. Be brave, be Berean, and let's see what the Torah really is telling us. Okay? Very important because there's been a huge identity theft. This was really uncovered, through some great, really brave and courageous Torah teachers a couple of years ago, but now it's coming mainstream almost. But there's a very important piece of this puzzle that I just really have to share. Because we are two sides of the same coin. I speak to you, Christian. Your name biblically is truly, by the way the prophets understood you and called you as a body, you are called Ephraim. So I speak to Ephraim and I say, Torah is two things. Yes, we have a Messiah that has come to us and wrapped up in the Torah narrative. But there also is, remember, the Word. And the Word, yes, was made flesh. But the Word, I have been a Christian for 45 years. With my husband, we ran a Christian bookstore for 25 years. I really kind of know the Christian market mindset, the big, broad picture. And this is information you are never going to find. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 10 years ago, would never find its way truly through us gatekeepers, Christian bookstore, because it wasn't me. But now it's a new time. People truly are ready, and I'm going to take you into something important because we are on the cusp of something very exciting that can really only be proved and understood when you get into the Word. And the Word is the 22 letters. That's what it is. It's Hebrew. It's the 22 letters. It's known, if you grew up as a Hebrew, you would be taught it was the DNA of creation if you were growing up Jewish, which truly is what it is in the sense. It is the code in which Yah used. He just wrote the code for everything in all creation. But it's very exciting. But what I want to say, let's start with Abraham. Abraham is the father of all those who believe, correct? That's what the Torah tells us. Now, in the story of Abraham, the father made a covenant with him after the flood. This is sort of the way now the father's going to move forward with people, after the flood. And the story of Abraham is a very important story because it's a story all of us can make when you grow up in a completely pagan household, in a world that couldn't care less about God and is just zooming around doing its own thing, okay? But somewhere in all of that, the call on our hearts is no, there's something deeper, bigger, greater, creator-ish out there. And we discover and we find. And this is something that is what the word is, but has to be understood in its Hebrew. There's something very special about it, which we didn't really understand. We thought we could get away with the translations. Look where we are now. 50,000, 40,000 different denominations. That didn't go very well. Let's go back to the Hebrew. So the story of Abraham made a covenant. And if you read the story, and it's two Hebrew words, he said, Abraham, I want you to be my guy. And I'm going to make a covenant with you, and it's going to contain a blessing and a birthright. He said, I'm going to bless you, and you are going to operate like my firstborn in the earth. You're going to be a king of the earth. I'm going to make you great in the earth, and you're going to have tremendous blessing. To translate that, okay, but to the Hebrew word. So we're dealing with two words. We're dealing with a word that blessing. You would bless, it's the word blessing, and the word birthright. Totally important, because if you follow those words in the Hebrew, it's going to tell you everything you need to know. We don't need all, okay? But in the Hebrew now, take the word blessing, the English word, in the Hebrew transliteration, it is this word barakah, okay? Right here, barakah, okay? And this is the Hebrew for it. All right. Now I'm only dealing with the consonants. I'm not going to get into any of the vowels that are there for helping pronunciation. But this is a bet a resh, a kaf, and a hey. Baraka. Okay, so it transliterates like this. So you have and the bet, which it begins with. So it's a barakah, it's a blessing. He gives them also what is known as a bekora, a bekora, which is the birthright. Okay, but this is very, very close. See, it's very close. It's always in the details. This is a bekora, which is the bet, the same letter here, and the kaf is here, but it's a little different place. Kaf, and this is the resh, which is right here, and this is the hay. So we basically have the same letters, but a little transposed. But we have this new, the ones you need to is these ones, the beraka and the bekora. All right, they both begin with a bet, and they both end with a bet. But it's these letters. And remember, these two are vowels, so they have a whole different function purpose there. So they don't really. It's the resh, and right here it's the kaf right here. Okay, that is all the difference, and which is how in the Hebrew you would quickly see beraka and bekara, and you could see that the two letters very quickly made a different meaning, but it makes a world of difference because in this, when I talk about this whole concept, if you've got the two houses of Israel, the story, this is historic, Christian, even if you knew our history better, we aren't really taught our history that well, but they were once 12 tribes, the whole nation of Israel, especially under King David, who unified. That's why he is identified as the archetype, like for the king, King David. They call him Mashiach ben Mashiach ben David, the Messiah of David, the kingship of David. That's an archetype, meaning he was the first one to unify all 12 tribes and make them into a nation. That's kind of what Mashiach is going to do when he comes back. Okay, and then there is this idea of so there's the story, the blessing, and then there's a birthright in here. So that's why I said that David is this kingly concept, all right? But you have this other sort, the blessing, Barakah. Who is this story of who has this role that is played as the greatest blessing of the 12? It's Joseph. Remember, Joseph gets this terrible beginning, but he ends up so well and for such a purpose of God, because he ends up blessing the whole world, saving them, because he follows God. He gets this vision of this famine and, this years of plenty, and he gets the ear of the king, and they plan for this. And he literally is like a savior in this concept where he saves with bread, the corn, everybody. And that's how the Egyptians are. I mean, that's how the Jews, or that's how the 70 souls that went down into Egypt, the 12 tribes, their wives, and some of the kids at that point, they had multiplied like that with Jacob, went down. That's the beginning of it. All right. But so you have these two archetypes of Joseph, who kind of has this idea of a blessing around him, right? He has this and he's able to live in this pagan culture and retain his ethical and lifestyle that he knows is Torah, and his mental connection through prayer and relationship with the Father. So he doesn't really become, even though he has dresses and talks and eats and acts like quote unquote an Egyptian, in his heart of hearts, which the Father sees and knows, he is actually following the God of his fathers, the God that he was taught in his youth. But so their two stories are really important. But in this here, you have an resh, and you have a cup. And that's really important, because what happens is in the story of Jacob, really and truly, people, this is what happens. And this is all by God's design. And it truly, I don't think most people really have understood it. But in hindsight, it's going to give God great glory as an extremely important tactical move in our victory. Remember, it says in the end we're going to win. Well, how do we win? Well, God does some very strategic things, But anyways, he splits these tribes in the sense we get this idea of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom through history, and they go out into the world. And when Jacob, who is the patriarch, and he's passing on this blessing birthright, this is no small thing. This is the whole these are our patriarchs. They understood the spiritual inheritance that they were dealing with and how important it was them to do what God was, asking them and training them to do in their life. But the stories when Joseph when the brothers were reunited. This is all good biblical story. You really got to kind of have the foundation. But when the brothers were reunited in Egypt and they brought the father Jacob down, and they were all reunited and everything, and they realized that Joseph, their brother, was alive. That was like the biggest miracle. His father all of a sudden got like this resurrection life for the last couple of years of his life because he was so ecstatic thinking his son was dead, but now he's alive. So many interesting things in this. But and they lived, under this, where their brother Joseph was like ruling as next to Pharaoh. They were like the royal family part of it now. But what happens is in the history, which you don't really understand, is these two, the Northern Kingdom, really did fight a civil war, basically. Got so for different reasons that are very important to the storyline, but not have no time. But God stopped it. He did intervene. And he said, and he did. He said, look, this isn't going to happen. Let it be. Through circumstances, let the Northern Kingdom go their own way. I am going to exile them because they have become so disobedient. This is real history, people. And the Northern Kingdom became known as Ephraim. That's why I said we're Christians. We're like known as Ephraim in the Bible because our story is that story. It really is. Conversely, you have this concept, if you're familiar with the parable of the prodigal son, you have this older brother, Judah, who stayed in the house and kept doing what the father wanted, okay? The point is, you have this blessing and this birthright that were put into, so to speak, all of the offspring of these people for all perpetuity. That's how the father works. This is the gifts and the callings of God are without repentance. If he gives something, he gives it. He doesn't take it back, okay? Maybe it doesn't really go the way he wanted, but still. So this blessing and this birthright are operating in the earth. But what's interesting is that, now let me just tell you what the difference is. It's huge. And it's really in these little letters. And what I like to say is the king, to remember it, K is for king, right? King. This is what the Jews call Bekara, the birthright, the king, the birthright. Judah has always kept the birthright, the concept of the lineage for the king Messiah, which is all prophesied. He has to come through a certain lineage. It's very important. And they have kept it. All right. Even at the time issue, they understood the Torah, they could piece it together to see his lineage. He qualified. I know that there's a lot of naysayers, whatever, but this is the point. He did. Okay. And they have these records. The king, and what I want to tell you is so interesting and why this is really a foolproof method. What I'm telling you, for people who are tracking a little bit and what just went through Rosh Hashanah, we just had, I'll date this video, Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year. It's the beginning of the year for the counting of kings, and it is Rosh Hashanah. A lot of people believe that the king, the final king, we're all waiting for the return of the king, will come on this and fulfill this feast of Rosh Hashanah, which has never happened. So but in all the readings, there's a lot of things that Rosh Hashanah remembers and commemorates and has in its but it says that the sages will tell us that it is the birthright of the birthday of Adam and Eve. Okay, that it was the first day Adam and Eve were created on this day. And I'm like, okay, well, how do they know that? I mean, really, how do you know that? You got to question the sources. So question it, I did, and in more reading and stuff, I come upon this website that explains that this is really true because as I know, this is what I know Hebrew is meant to do. So it happens on Tishri 1. Always the first of Tishri is the head or the beginning of the year. Did you know that, Christian? Okay, it's not January 1st. It really is Tishri 1. Okay, we just had, which was October 3rd, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so what was I going to say? So that it's the reason they know that and with authorities that because in the word Bereshit, remember, okay, this is how it works. The word in the beginning right? It says that everybody knows that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the Hebrew, that is this word bereshit. It starts with this letter, bereshit, bet, okay? In the beginning. So beginning has a concept in it first of just that, a beginning, a first. So this is what when the Father, I just want you to see this, how there's always a story and a picture. When he starts with bet, the berakah, the bekara, it's the beginning of now the covenant with Abraham. These things have, but it contains something, all right? So that's just a little hint, a little clue. But in this concept of the bekara versus the berakah, when Jacob blessed the sons, just a story in there. When he got to Joseph, the point is Joseph a little bit later, he brought his two sons. He got married, he had kids, he had these two sons. He brought them to his father, Jacob, when Jacob was very elderly and looked like it could be, he might not make it. And Jacob blessed the boys, and he took the blessing that was to be given to Joseph, who was the son, which was really and truly, and with Joseph, I think it must have been a very spiritually charged moment, transferred it directly to his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And in this whole thing, he transferred the higher portion of this, what is known as the blessing, to Ephraim. That's why I say, Christian, you're called Ephraim. Because biblically, then Ephraim became associated as like, he was the son who received the head birthright as the firstborn for the blessing. So it makes sense. And the people who, the offspring of that event, become known sort of as Ephraim. So they become known as the house of Ephraim, the group of Ephraim, the clan of Ephraim. Okay, so you guys see the northern kingdom is really best known as Ephraim. So just for argument's sake, keep it simple. Just if you're going to listen to me and follow me, which I hope you do, because I'm the new Torah teacher on the block that's going to connect Jesus to who he really is, right? This Jewish Messiah. So what I'm trying to say, trying to keep it simple, but see, my point is, we never would have known. Now, the reason they know that Tishri 1 is the birthday or the beginning, like say, of the first day of creation on the sixth day with Adam and Eve, because if you take the letters, bereshit, and you transpose them, which is a whole way in which they retain knowledge. Okay, when you take this is a very high form of oral retention, where you make little acrostics and an acronym of different things, and then you know what it means behind, and you kind of, that's how you remember large chunks of information. The same thing, you can take these letters, you can kind of transpose them a little bit, and you come up with a new like message. This is what the codes are. I'm sorry. And it says Tishri 1 right in there. So beginning on Tishri 1. It's right there. See, this is what's so interesting. I didn't make it up. Nobody made it up. The sages didn't make. That's what the letters do all by themselves. And that's why Moshe had to be on the mountain for 40 days twice, just because to get all this straight. I can't even imagine trying to code all this information. See, this is people, we just didn't know the depth. What do you know, a lot of times it's like, what have the Jews been doing with this quote unquote Torah for all these thousands of years? Well, they've been mining it. It is the greatest, what it says, it's the greatest source of like mining for nuggets of gold. All right. So my point is to tell you that it's all about the rush, the in here, which is an R or a K in the transliteration. It hinges on what those letters mean. And there's more to it, I'll tell you. But see, this is the point. The Ephraim carries the blessing. Christianity, see, and in the blessing are two important things. Let me tell you this. There's two promises that God, if I have this phrase that if God calls you, he will equip you. He called Abraham to be a king in the earth. Like, Abraham, I'm going to make you one of the leaders. You're going to be like one of the Elon Musks of the world. You're going to really make things happen, okay, for me. And so he said, but okay, great. With what? And so he made him a rich man, a great man. There's a blessing involved. Like I said, when God, this is why we shouldn't feel poverty. If we understand the Father has got to provide for us, when we understand that, and provision comes through that understanding, but that Joseph had this upon him, which means Christianity, we have always been the elevators of the nations that we go to. And I'm not saying even as a Christian, but because you are part of this offspring, these letters, if they are the DNA of creation, just like, let's just give it the benefit of the doubt, just suspend that Western rational critical mindset, okay, for a second, and just think holistically. If these letters really did, in a coding sense, why not, make the universes? Okay, let's just leave it there. Then why can't there be all these, again, if you levels and layers of information also packed into there? And there's also the gematria. I've never, the math in this is also provable mathematically. So you want proofs. So I'm saying, and this is what is making it very exciting today, and is actually a great blessing, because while the world actually blows up in its rebellion, we are coming into finally a total peace and unity, because when we understand the role of Ephraim in the world today, people, and it's done, this role, in the sense, it's why we're coming into what is known as the reunification of all Israel. Ephraim, which represents the seat of these 10 northern tribes that got, the sister got exiled, divorced, sent away, cut off, were no longer part of the covenants. I'm going to show you something in a second. And then Judah, who kind of stayed faithful and as small remnant. All right. But this is such a so as these two, we're going to come together in our understanding. All right, because the banner over us, the God, Christian, who is the God that you would say you serve? Right? Is it not the God of Israel? Judah, who are you serving? It's the God of Israel, correct? So he does not have a multiplicity of names, right? Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, the Lord our God, he's one. All right. And this is what we're going to understand. What we thought was great division and is going to be able to be unified. And I believe in a single day, in the sense when things go viral today, and the God is going to pour out his spirit. It's the aha moment when we understand two sides of the same coin. All right. We've had these two witnesses in the world to do, these two jobs to do. All right. It has to do with fulfilling the birthright and fulfilling the blessing. All right. And when we bring it together, the world truly will be astounded, and we will be equipped to lead the nations to our understanding and to be ready for Mashiach when he comes. This is really important. It's going to happen. What amazes me, it's right there, hidden in plain sight. So I have a lot more to say in that, but I did want to get that much out. Remember these. Think of it. It's the berah, the berakah, the blessing, or the bekarah. And you got to go look at your words in the Hebrew. Make sure don't rely on the translations. Be Berean. Rely on what the Ruach HaKodesh has laid down in the written Torah. So see you in the next video. And I hope look at this, my cat. I probably have to get at it. But I wanted to say, this is my cat. She likes to sit with me, and she listened to all of that. But she was right on that inconvenience wasn't so bad, right? Shalom, shalom.